A new law has passed that will automatically register men for the draft. House passes bill to automatically register young men for the draft. So, a new law has passed through the House that will now automatically register young men for the draft, and there are serious implications into this. And young men are not alone; women are actually now being included as well. We're going to go ahead and delve into all of this. So stay to the end of the video to understand entirely why the House has now passed a new bill to automatically draft men and why women are now also facing automatic drafting as well. And now let's just go ahead and jump into the first article. So, as you guys can see here, the House passed a bill to automatically register young men for the draft. The House passed a large defense bill Friday evening that included a provision that would automatically enroll young men between the ages of 18 and 25 for the Selective Service. And I think it was actually previously between 18 and 25, and it seems like they may have raised it up a year to 26. The House version of the National Defense Authorization Act, which would authorize $895 billion in military spending, passed by a vote of 217 to 199. And now it's gone on to the Democrat-controlled Senate, where it will likely see a number of amendments made regarding reproductive rights, diversity efforts, and a number of other things. The Selective Service provision, though, is part of an enduring bipartisan effort. Notice that, an enduring bipartisan effort to keep the framework for military conscription in place, even though the draft ended in 1975. Automatic registration would replace the coming-of-age tradition that all 18-year-old male U.S. citizens experience when they get a card in the mail from Uncle Sam, informing them that they're required, under threat of criminal penalties, to register for the Selective Service, which is kind of messed up. They're basically like, if you don't register, we're going to throw you in jail. We'll take, no student loans for you. And, you lose a bunch of other things as well, including like a driver's license you can lose. They can basically tell you that you can no longer drive in this state. So those are some very, very serious consequences of not registering. The thing is that what Gen Z doesn't give a damn. So many Gen Zers, every year, 100,000 Gen Zers who turn 18 are not registering for the draft. And that's another one of the reasons why this is actually happening. However, it's not the entire reason, as there is 100% more to this. I've actually talked about this problem before, but we're going to look at an article that basically brings this up. And I know many of you are going to be shocked by this, but the U.S. Army is struggling to recruit as most of Gen Z is ineligible to serve due to factors like obesity, drug use, and tattoos. I'll read it again. The U.S. Army is struggling to recruit as most of Gen Z is ineligible to serve due to factors like obesity, drug use, and tattoos. Guys, this is crazy stuff. So Gen Z, most of them are not eligible to serve. The U.S. Army fell 15,000 soldiers short of recruitment goal this year. Most of Gen Z would be ineligible for military service without a waiver. Per a Pentagon study, obesity, drug use, and mental health are among the most common disqualifiers. Okay. On Friday, military officials confirmed that the Army came up 25% or 15,000 soldiers short of its recruitment goal for this year. And the other military branches are already behind heading into next year. So the military is actually suffering in terms of military reserves. 50 years ago, we had almost 2 million people serving in the military reserves, and that's when our population was much smaller. 50 years later, when we now have over 300 million people in the U.S., our military reserves have fallen down to less than 200,000 people. So there are now less than 200,000 people serving in our military reserves versus 50 years ago, where it was almost 2 million. So our military reserves is roughly around a tenth of what it was 50 years ago. And there's some lunatics who are like, oh, it doesn't matter. We don't need boots on the ground. We have drones and artificial intelligence. They'll do the fighting for us in other countries like China. They don't have that kind of money. They have their own problems. They can't afford to go to war with us. Bro, these people are crazy. The reason for these struggles vary, but even if the military was the only employer left calling, there's reason to believe the vast majority of Gen Z, today's target generation for recruitment, wouldn't even qualify. According to a 2020 Pentagon study first reported on by military.com last Friday, 77% of 17 to 24-year-olds were ineligible for military service without a waiver, a 6% increase from the last study in 2017. Now, guys, here's where things get even freakier. So this article is from October 5th, 2022. This is from October 5th, 2022, but keep in mind that this study was done this is according to a 2020 Pentagon study. So they did a study in 2020, and they also did a study in 2017, and it went up 6% from the study in 2017, looking at if Gen Zers were eligible to serve. So now 77% of Gen Zers 17 through 24 years old are not even eligible to serve. And this data is outdated because this is from 4 years ago. Gen Z has been getting much worse since 2020. So the problem was there from the very beginning. 77% of Gen Zers could not serve in the military, U.S. military, back in 2020, y'all. 2020. That was 4 years. That was 4 years ago at the time of making this video. At the time of making this video, it's 2024. And Gen Z was in 77% of Gen Zers were ineligible to serve in the military 4 years ago. Okay, what do you think those numbers are looking like now after Gen Zers have entered into the workforce and they've been absolutely going ballistic? Guys, it's gonna be at least 80%. I'm thinking 80 to 90% of Gen Zers are now are not eligible to serve. Okay, so this is one of the major reasons why they now need to automatically register these people for the military, because one, they're not doing it on their own, and because so many of them are not eligible to serve, they need to have all of those names available so that they can go through lists to figure out who they can force to serve. So if you're a Gen Zer and you're not mentally ill, you're not using drugs, you don't have tattoos, you're the people they're going to target. So the best way to avoid being forced into the military is to basically say that to claim a mental illness, get tatted up, and start smoking pot. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. Now, as we mentioned earlier, it doesn't end there. So the U.S. military draft, they've also drafted a bill that would require women to register for selective service. This was also done alongside the bill that we just talked about. So the House of Representatives passed an updated version of the national bill that would automatically register men ages 18 to 25 into selective service. All right, so we talked about that. However, while it hasn't been invoked in half a century, it's mandatory for all male citizens to register for the U.S. selective service. The law currently requires that only men register with the selective service. In the event that the law is changed to include registering women, selective service is prepared to expand registration, the website reads. The Senate Armed Forces Committee has since created their version of the NDAA, so their own version, where the draft eligibility would be extended to women. So they're going to amend that bill, and short of a Hail Mary pass, women will end up being drafted. The proposal to have women register for the draft is not included in the House version of the bill, but it is included in the Senate version of the bill. So they would basically reconcile the two bills into one. Some experts say it's necessary and fair to make the draft talent unified in the event of a national emergency. And of course, the bill has garnered mixed reactions. What's interesting is that there's some pushback from Republicans, but the thing is that it's the Republicans who are actually pushing forward that more so that women should be drafted. So this is absolutely very, very interesting stuff. To make matters even more intriguing, a federal court actually ruled that a male-only draft is unconstitutional, but they did not freeze the draft. Instead, it ended up going to the Supreme Court, and the Biden administration asked the Supreme Court to give it enough time to allow Congress to review it, because they were already discussing, adding women to the adding an amendment that would, not an amendment, but amending the the selective service policy so that women would be required to serve. They didn't do that 4 years ago. It was basically in one of the bills, and then it was taken out. However, now if basically the way the Supreme Court rules it works is they give them a reasonable amount of time to get it done, and if they don't get it done, then they will, if this goes back to the Supreme Court, they'll just throw the whole damn thing out, and they'll say that the male-only draft is unconstitutional because women can now serve in every branch of the military. So, they would be required naturally to serve. There's no reason for women not to be required to sign up for the draft or automatically be registered for the draft. So it very much looks like this will go through. Again, short of a Hail Mary pass, stranger things have happened, but it does absolutely look like this is going to go through, and women are going to be required to serve in the military, and it's going to happen automatically. One of the reasons why they need to do this again is because only 77% of Gen Z men are even eligible to serve, and that was back in 2020. I'm telling y'all, it's 100%, 80 to 90% at this point. 80 to 90% at this point. So they have so few Gen Zers that are even eligible to serve that they need to pull from men and women to make up the military ranks. Yeah, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Like, Gen Z they're a group of bad little muffins. So what this is going to look like ultimately is, the answer to the question of how this is going to impact society is women are going to be forced to serve in the military alongside Gen Z. They're going to be automatically registered. Gen Zers are automatically going to be registered, but it's not as simple as that, because so many of them are not even eligible to serve in the military that it will impact many of them, but it will just automatically register everyone, and then the military will be able to go through all of their details and records and find the Gen Zers who are not using drugs, who are not tatted up, who are not mentally ill or mentally incompetent, and then they will force those people to serve. So basically, guys, can you imagine this? You're punished. The U.S. military is essentially going to punish you for not being a bad muffin. They're going to punish you for not being like the rest of your generation. Like, your reward is you get to go to war, while the bad ones, which is the vast majority of the generation, 77% back in 2020, y'all. That just tells you how bad the generation is. 77%, and that was in 2020, can't serve. So you're gonna be punished if you're a Gen Zer who works hard and hasn't done any of that bad stuff like the rest of your generation. Your reward is war or mandatory military service, because once they sign you up for this, they're also talking about passing separate bills that would require mandatory military service. And once the military has you, they have you. They can call you up at any time. So this is crazy. It's kind of like how with universal basic income, where the people who have to work hard are the people who end up getting taxed to pay for people who don't want to work, and the Gen Zers who are decent people, they're going to end up having to pay for. They're going to be the ones punished, forced with mandatory military service, forced to go to war, while the rest of their generation gets to stay home, sleep, fart, play video games, do drugs, really enjoy themselves, and then just do it again the next day. Yeah, the world is a messed up place, man. That's why you really can't take any of this stuff too seriously. You cannot take life too seriously. By the way, guys, if you're enjoying the content, consider checking out, our newsletter for my personal thoughts, insights, and a free copy of my ebook, The Blueprint for Escaping the Rat Race. Click the link in the description to get your free copy. Guys, what do you think regarding all of this? A new law has passed through the House, and it has gone into the Senate, where to automatically draft men, but not only men, but to draft women as well. What do you guys think? Do you agree that it's looking like this thing is going to pass unless, there's some Hail Mary pass? And if it doesn't pass, it goes to the Supreme Court, back to the Supreme Court, where they would basically throw out the entirety of the they would likely throw out the entirety of the all male draft, and say it's unconstitutional, which is something that the state does not want. So I really think there's a very, very good chance it's going to pass now. Let me know your thoughts, and we'll talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA Men Walking Away. And cheers.